This is the Righteous View with
Okay. Technical difficulties, people.
your hosts, Alia Byers, Deborah Hoskins, and Christina McCormick.
Look, it's technical difficulties.
This is the Righteous.
Y'all know, y'all know how we do. We are live. It's technical difficulties.
Oh, welcome everyone. Welcome everyone. We were trying to get our opening and it wouldn't let us open it. And I'm just going to remove that. Thank you very much. Welcome to the Righteous View, everyone. I am Avia Byers. Our weekly podcast will focus on topics regarding women of all ages. Our mission is to foster righteous, open dialogue on topics that have been taboo within our social communities. We want to cultivate open and healthy discussions between mothers and daughters, husbands and wives, mature women and young women. Our goal is to educate and to provide factual information to these demographics concerning our biological, physiological, and a spiritual existence. So introducing my beautiful co-hosts, Deborah Hoskins and Christina McCormick.
Good evening to each and every one. We truly miss you guys. We miss everyone. Welcome. We want to encourage you to tune in weekly every Thursday evening at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here for thought-provoking topics that will hopefully stimulate conversations that are sometimes hard and uncomfortable.
All right, we are live. Y'all excuse my voice on Facebook at the Hebraic Awakening and the Righteous View, Father. If you miss a podcast, you can view it in past podcasts on our YouTube channel at the Righteous View. If you enjoyed the topics and the discussions have helped you in any way, please subscribe, like, and hit the notification button.
Yes. Today, our topic is empowering young women.
Right.
So I want to introduce our guest professional panelist, Yedida Yehuda. I wish we need to get that sound effect in the background where it's hearing.
Yes.
So we're going to introduce Yedida right now. We have, I'm so excited about her being here. And she is a professional in her own right in working with groups and young women. So Yedida has MS, MPA, RD, CDN, and she is the founder of the Black Doll Project in Ghana. And through this platform, she encourages young men and women to love their skin that they're in as Africans. Yedida is the co-chair of Bridge to Africa 360 Incorporated, a coalition of independent nonprofit organizations that provides services and programs in Africa and the Caribbean. In 1987, she moved to Ghana with her 3 children and resided here for over a year in several communities from Accra to Cape Coast and Elmina. On her return to the USA, Yedida began to promote Africa in general and Ghana in particular as a place for Africans in the diaspora to connect with and explore. Over the past 37 years, Miss Yehuda has also organized many tours to Ghana, introducing hundreds of people to Ghana. In 2018, Yedida retired early, moved to Ghana, where she now resides. Not that far from me. Woo-hoo. Woo. Yadida worked for Westchester County Health Department for 25 years, where she served as program administrator for multiple health programs, including nutrition, tobacco control, chronic disease prevention, HIV counseling, testing prevention, STD, HIV partner services investigations. She also chaired many coalitions throughout the county on a number of health issues, including Project Wave Westchester, War Against the Virus Escalating, Westchester AIDS Council, Steering Committee of Power, POWR, Against Tobacco, Women Organized Around Wellness, WOW, WOW, Women Organized Around Wellness, and served as advisory board member of Westchester County Youth Council and Sister to Sister International, to name a few. Now, that's just a few, y'all. She has held several full-time positions in other local organizations working on healthcare issues with at-risk populations. Yadida received her bachelor's degree from Marymount College, her master's of science degrees in nutrition and human ecology from Herbert Lehman College.
Lehman.
Master's, was that good? Lehman?
Mhm. Yeah.
College, and a master's degree in public administration from Pace University. Yadida is also involved with many community organizations to promote health and wellness in communities of color. Her vision is to build healthy communities by creating whole individuals. Yadida Yehuda created the Wellness, Wealth, and Wisdom for Mind, Body, and Soul seminars in 2010 for adults 18 and over, with the goal of inspiring each one of them to achieve balance in every area of their life. She has presented her wellness seminars internationally, live and online. It is her hope that once they are in their whole place, they can reach out to their immediate family and community to inspire more positive change. Yadida is also a proud mother of 3 dynamic children. She is one of our first guest speaker tonight, and we are excited about her being here. And she's going to talk to us tonight on looking inward, recognizing all the good things about oneself. Welcome, Yadida.
Thank
Welcome.
you. Boy, that was exhausting. That's a lot of fun here, but I enjoyed every minute of it, and thank you for inviting me to this podcast where I can speak to our people and all people in general about some of the great lessons that I and others have learned along the way. So, thank you and welcome to everyone who is listening. And I hope and pray that I'm able to impart at least one piece of useful information that each person can walk away with and take action with immediately so that they can change their individual lives. So, with that being said, I think our overarching topic tonight is going to be empowerment. Is that correct? Um, empowerment, right, for women. Empower her,
Yes.
empowering girls and empowering women. And it's important. But what I love about this podcast is that we're talking to young women, in addition to other women from various age groups, and a lot of us, and I think I can safely say that in my age group, we did not have the luxury or the blessing of having this information at high school age. We were just stumbling through and wondering, and by the grace of Most High, we were able to make it where we are today. So now we get to give back to the communities before us, and so we can reach out to girls in high school and say, "Hey, I'll give you this empowerment, this information about empowerment, so that you can empower empower yourself to start early. You get an early start. You started in our 30s. You can start in your 18, your 19, your 20s, and therefore you can have a more full and luxurious life. Longer and more of it, so to speak. So before I start talking about looking inward, I want to just say a little bit about empowerment and about definition. So, it's important to me to always define what it is that my work is powerful. And this is the way that we communicate with every language. And so, in every single language, we know that every has multiple meanings, multiple definitions. And so, it's important for us to define how we are using words. When we say empowerment, what do we mean? What exactly is it? Because if we don't define it, someone else will define it for us. So it's important to always make that definition, so that there can be clarity in everything that we do. And so let me just give you, there's just so many ways to define empowerment, right? Um, and I'm going to give you 5 of them. Is the authority or power given to someone to do something, right? That's one. The process of becoming stronger and more confident in controlling one's life and claiming what is rightfully yours. That's another definition. Granting of power, right, or authority. That's empowerment. The degree of autonomy and self-determination in people and communities. The process of gaining freedom and power to do what you want or to control what happens in your life, right? So, which one will you choose, right? What I'm going to choose today is making a conscious decision to make a change of your own destiny, right? We all have to empower ourselves. So now, if you think about working at a job, right? You have a supervisor who can have a staff member who is not so confident, be a little shy, is the person who likes to speak. And the supervisor will say, I empower you to go out there and to be dynamic, to be amazing, do all the things that I have on paper for you to do. But unless the person empowers themselves, takes that empowerment, and lives that empowerment, it will never happen. And so, empowerment and empowering oneself is probably the most important tool that we have in order to change our destiny. So, my favorite way of talking about empowerment and going within is what I call the man in the mirror syndrome, right? If we look at, if we drill
Can
down
you,
from
Eugenia, can you say that again? Because we missed that first part.
the part about the man in the mirror.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. So, um, to me, self empowerment is all about the man, what I call the man in the mirror syndrome, which means that, and again, I'm defining what I'm saying. Um, we want to change the world and we want to change our communities, but we have to drill down from the ground up. If you think about it, it's whole individuals, empowered whole individuals who make an empowered whole family, who then constitutes an empowered whole community. And then if you fan out some more, you begin to create empowered whole nations and so forth and so forth. So you start with the man in the mirror, you can only change yourself, only empower yourself. And that is what looking within is all about. I want to be that example. You can't pour from an empty glass. So in
Right.
order for me to pour to my community, pour to my family, to pour to anyone, I must fill my cup. So going within is about filling my own cup so that now I have something to give. Because again, I can't give what I don't have,
That's right.
right? And
That's right.
so that is important in the power of going within and working on self. Now, when I worked in the health department in chronic disease prevention, I realized that all of the tools that we give to the communities, the food models and the portion sizes and the types of food you should eat, those were external because we put all of these things in front of people, but if they don't have the self-love and the self-care, they will always make the wrong choice.
Mhm.
So the best thing to do is to go inside and realize that I have to empower myself. I have to tell myself I am worthy, I'm important, I am beautiful, I'm powerful. And I have to believe that with my whole soul, because it's only at that point that I will begin to make choices that would let me live into that state. If I love myself, I will want to take better care of myself. I will choose better foods for myself. I will make sure that I'm moving my body. I'll make sure
Mhm.
that I'm meditating. I'm thinking good thoughts. I'm
Right.
making sure that I am always looking at the glass as half full as opposed to half empty, right? All of these things, if you think about, there's certain diseases. I know you've heard of bulimia and anorexia. These are diseases that manifest in a physical way, but they're psychological diseases. And no matter how much coaching you give to these people who are affected by these diseases, information, because there's some wire that is not connecting psychologically in their mind, they will always become too fat, when in fact they are very underweight. And so this is the case with a lot of things that we do. We make choices from a place of powerlessness. And so we want to switch that. We want to empower ourselves to go from a place of powerlessness to powerfulness. And in that, when we are in that space, we begin to make the right choices about our food, about our finances, about our spirituality, about our mentality, about our emotional well being. You see? And so we're coming from a place of power and not powerless. And so when you begin the journey of empowerment, you have to look within. Even when you're choosing a career, if you're really going from a place of empowerment, you're looking at yourself. What are my gifts? What am I born with? What did I just come into this world with? What is my passion? What's my purpose? Right? And so we have to go inside so that we can find that space. And then we live into that passion and that purpose. And a lot of times, money will follow that. Your finances and your wealth will follow because you are living in your purpose. And so the universe will rise up and bless you, and the blessings will chase you because you're doing what you are put on this earth to do. And so that is the basis of going within. Um, when you think about empowerment uh, in your community, again, two examples of empowering um, uh, promotions or programs that I'm currently involved in are one, the Black Doll Project, and the next new project will be Girl Talk, right? Now, let me just tell you a story about that. So, from 1987 to 2021, I had never seen a black doll in Ghana. And one year in 2019, before the year of return, I was at this biggest festival in Central Region called Faith Kofashi, and they had a procession actually of about 70 children with uniforms of nursing, and they all had doll babies. And every single one of those dolls were white dolls, blonde hair, blue eyes. I was outraged. And so I decided we have to solve this problem. And so the Black Doll Project was born. And so I've given out over 2,000 black dolls every year since 2021 until present. But we use the black doll as a platform to talk about self-love, loving your skin, loving your lips, loving your hair as African, loving the skin that God made you in, right? And not trying to change or be a different color or a different shade or a different person. But the black doll is a symbol for that. And so we are empowering girls, mothers, boys to support their sisters and their daughters and their mothers, making sure they know that they're beautiful in their black skin. Also, encouraging stores and malls to start selling more Black dolls for our girls so that when they make that choice, the dolls will be available. And that is just a brief summary of the project. So we have given that information to thousands of girls and women and boys throughout Ghana in various different regions. Now we have started another project called Girl Talk, and that is centered around pubescent girls and their menstruation. And so this April will be the first project. We will be talking to 105 pubescent girls about menstruation, about taking care of themselves. What is really happening when your period is coming on? What is happening hormonally? What is happening with you mentally? How you feel? Because I know I was growing up in the 70s and I had girlfriends and I thought we were losing our mind. Nobody explained to us about PMS. We thought we were literally going crazy. And it wasn't until in my 30s that I realized that all the things we went through were caused by hormones because we were going through puberty. And so it's funny now because the guys in our class, we have the alumni association, and the guys could not believe it. They said, "Oh my God, this is what was happening with my wife, my daughter, my sister." I thought that they were all mad. And so the beautiful thing is now we get to empower pubescent girls. We get to explain to them, this is what happens when you're going through that cycle. This is what you're going to feel like. And here are some tools, by the way. When you're feeling low, when you're feeling depressed, when you're crying, you're getting PMS, here's someone you can talk to. Here's something you can do. And so these are tools that we didn't have, but now that we've learned them, we want to empower the next generation to have these tools so that they can have a head start that we didn't have. So I hope this is all making sense. So the point I want to talk about when I'm talking about going within is that everything touches everything else. There is no single thing in your life that stands alone. Every decision that you make about your finances, again, about your food, about your exercise, about your partners, about your dating, everything, every decision you make it from the place of where you are, whether it's powerless or powerful. And so it's important to make good decisions. And the only way that you can make these good decisions is becoming empowered, becoming powerful, knowing that as a woman, as a girl, we have so much power. They say the man is the head, right? The woman is the neck. And now, if the neck wants to turn the head this way and that way, the neck has the power and the ability to do that. So we just want to recognize, we want our girls to recognize their power and their strength, and not in a negative way, but in a way that empowers our entire family and our communities. Because we can also have quiet power. Our power doesn't have to be loud in the audible sense. It could be very soft but very powerful. And that is what it should be. But we just need to know exactly who we are, how much power we have, and how we can use that power to change ourselves. And by changing ourselves, change the world. The hand that knocks rules the world. And so that is how we can change our mental state, our vibration, and our by the way that we be, as Ayana earlier said, how you be, the way we are today. We choose that. And so we can change the world by becoming empowered ourselves. So I want to open up for questions. If anyone has questions, I don't know if you want to open up the podcast. Are asking questions. If any of my the co-hosts or the other guests have questions, please let's have a dialogue. Let's talk this through.
Yes, I'm going to definitely say, Yadida, though, keep your head turned toward that speaker so your voice is not going. You said so much. Oh, it's great stuff. I mean, when I think about you, when you said making decisions from a place of powerless, from a powerless place, and making decisions. And so many of us do that, especially when we don't get that information, important information that should be passed down through our generations. and coming down from our mothers, our grandmothers, our great grandmothers, those matriarchs that can help us, navigate through those things. And we were kind of laughing, Prophetess Deborah and myself, because when we did our the segment on adolescence and puberty, we were laughing because we said the same thing. I mean, we were like, what in the world is going on? I mean, am I going crazy? I feel like I'm losing my mind. I want to just, but it was the hormones. Your body was changing, and that it's normal. And we've gotten to a place in our society, it's where it's so easy for us to say that somebody is just crazy, or, how she is, when the person may truly be going through a hormonal crisis where they need some help and some stabilizing from, they may need medication to help stabilize and to get them, but we're so used to just, everything is taboo. Oh, you know how she is. Don't pay no attention to her, or just, and so we get to that place where we do that. But I think in high school, when I remember, oh Lord, I was trying to figure it out. But my parents were not big on sending a girl to college. And I had teachers telling me, you need to fill out your applications. You should go to this school. You should go to that school. I was in the top 10% of my graduating class. I was the highest ranking person in my ROTC class, highest ranking female in the brigade. So in our entire in Forsyth County, I was the highest female ranking officer. And I remember that year, West Point opened up for women. And my sergeant came to me and said, Cutter, I want you to apply for that for West Point. So here I am, 17 years old. I'm like, okay, what does that look like? What is that really going to look like? There's no other women there. Am I going to be the only woman there? Do I really want to put myself in that position? Whatever. And then when I went home and talked to my parents, my father was a pastor. And he was like, no, I don't want my daughter running around with a gun in her hand, not realizing the opportunity that it could have been. Now, there was a lot of horror stories that came out from that with that first group of women who went to West Point. But and I believe all things are that Father Yahweh shields us in areas, protects us and keeps us. If I was meant to go there, that I would have gone.
Exactly.
But this is the thing. I had no clue, because I didn't have that mentor, person in my life to be able to say, hey, you're smart. You can go to college. You can go to school. But when you're hearing this from your parents, I don't want to send a girl to college. You're just going to go there and you're going to probably get pregnant and you're probably going to just mess up your life. And, and then that makes you kind of shy back and pull back and say, well, maybe I shouldn't go. And so I didn't go until after married, grown children. I was going to college with my son. So at the same time he was going. So to have that mentor and have that, that's what I thought of when you said making decisions in a powerless place.
Right. And so a lot of, if you think about the past, a lot of our parents and their parents, they actually did the best they could with what they have. They didn't have the amount of information we have. So they were raised a certain way. We have an opportunity today to make a huge shift in even parenting. We say that our children come through us. The Most High blesses us to be vessels to bring them forth, but they really belong to the Creator. They don't
Yes.
belong to us. And so they
Right.
are here. They're on this earth with their own purpose, with their own passion, with things that the Creator has given them gifts to come to this earth to manifest. And we have no right to interfere in that. Our
Absolutely.
role is to guide them the best way we could until they get to the age where God can speak to them directly and they can move
Absolutely.
on. And so in
Mhm.
time, parents,
Mhm.
especially in Africa and Caribbean, parents will tell you, I want to be a doctor, lawyer, teacher, nurse. Because, why? For their own gratification, for their own prestige, because it makes money. I could be a nurse. People paid me $1 million, I would never be a nurse of young children. It's just not
Your
something that
mic
I
is
would do.
going. Your mic is going in and out again. We can't hear
Is
you.
it better? Is it better
Yes.
now?
Yes.
Okay. So the mic is. I have to stop moving around. So the parents now, and we have a role in that to
Right.
recognize that parenting styles need to change. So we are
Right.
here to help guide these children until they get to the point where they can speak directly to the Creator and to find out what it is that the Creator wants them to do.
Want them to
And so
do.
it may
Right.
not be what we want them to do, though. But
Right.
we have to get them to the place where, like a pastor or a rabbi, I need to get you to that place in front of the Most High so that Most High can speak to you.
Right.
And like Samuel said to was it? I don't know.
Eli.
Eli,
I said,
and when
Samuel.
you hear the Most High talking to you, said, "Here I am."
Right.
Well, we need to present our children to that place so that the Creator
Absolutely.
can tell them why he's
Absolutely.
here on this earth and be okay with that. So if they don't, just whatever it is that they have passion for, be the best at it. And that is the encouragement we
Absolutely.
should give our
Absolutely.
children. And so I like telling stories. So I want to tell this story. I don't know if you've heard about the pot roast, right? Have you heard the story about the pot roast? So
Yeah.
there was a pot roast, yes, the pot roast contest, and the woman kept cutting off the edge of the two ends of the pot roast, and the reporter said, "Why you keep doing that?" And the woman said, "Oh, but my mother did that." And go ask my mother. So he went and asked the mother, and they said, "Oh, but my mother did it." And they drilled down 4 generations backwards. And the last mother said, "Well, I lived during the Depression, and I only had 1 baking pan, and the pot roasts were huge. So I had to cut the ends off so you can fit in the pan. But here
Right.
we are in 2025. We got 25 different pans, different sizes,
Right.
and shapes. We can buy
Right.
but we're still doing what our great-great-great-grandmother did, which was perfect for the time she lived in, but doesn't make sense today."
That's right. That's perfect.
So that is that's another shift. We have to empower ourselves
Right.
to think for the time that we're in.
Absolutely.
Is it still relevant?
Absolutely.
Does it make sense?
Absolutely.
Is it hurting us or is it helping us? And we have to give
Absolutely.
ourselves the power to step into that and to make those changes so that we can always have that shift moving forward and upward. And we're not dragging ourselves backward.
There you
Things that
go.
no longer serve us.
And that's
Yes.
so important, because realizing that whole experience that I had, we completely did an about face, with that, and exposed our children to everything that we could expose them to see, so that they could make the decision on what they want their future to look like, where they wanted to matriculate into. So I mean, we got them into everything, every art, every sport, every kind of program so that they could find out what it is they were put on this earth to do. And they both decided, go to college, get a degree, go. And I remember when I talked to our son, and he first went into college and majored in music. And he's a great musician, praise Father Yah. And he said to me one time, I remember I said, Calvin, he switched from Johnson C. Smith and went over to A&T. And I said, "You're going to still major in music?" And he looked at me and he said, "Mom, I want to eat." He said, "I'm majoring in business." because I want to eat. He said, I can still play my music. I can still, Father can still move on me and move me in the places he wants. And he truly has. He has been given the opportunity to play with greats in the music industry. But guess what? He has a full-time business of his own, professor at a university. And, because he took the time to think those things through. And we helped them and talked to them and opened up that conversation. And that's one of the things that wasn't always with our parents, our upline. Did you have that open conversation like that, to be able to say, well, I don't really want to do that, or that, we come from a generation where everything was pretty much kind of settled for you. You need to be a housewife, whether you want to be that or not,
Exactly. So those are the subtle shifts that we have to make in ourselves first, because it has to happen in our mind first. We have to grasp it, and we have to empower ourselves to make those changes, to make those shifts in ourselves and in our households, so that now we can create a better world. And it seems simplistic, but again, I started with it and I'll end with it. You can only change yourself. The man in the mirror, Michael Jackson, I love him, says, if you want to make the world a better place, take a look at yourself and make that change. And that is so profound and so powerful. And so that's what we're talking about today. And we're being examples. We're being light to other people, so that they can see that if we can empower ourselves and make those changes, so can you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I love the Black Doll program. Is wonderful, because I experienced that when we first came over 3 years ago, and I saw all the white baby dolls being sold in the little shops on the street. And I stopped and I asked one young lady, I said, why don't you have any black baby dolls? And she looked at me and turned her nose and said, I looked at her and said, you are beautiful. Look at you. Look at your mother. I said, we are beautiful. That beautiful black skin. I said, don't you ever look at our skin as being ugly. I said, you need to get some black baby dolls. I said, I bet you what, I need to go back to the States, buy some and bring them over here, not even knowing that you had that program going on. But it was a stigma, and it was something, the lighter the skin, the better.
Yes. And that was very deliberate. So when the colonizers left, the places they colonized, whether it's Caribbean or here, they left the next person closer to them in charge, meaning that, they impregnated a lot of Africans and Caribbean black people, and so they came out with lighter children.
Right.
So they left. Of course, they imposed this notion that God is white, and so here's an image of God, blondie or blue-eyed, the Son of God, and who is us is God, and this is what he looks like. He looks like me, so therefore I am superior. Everything white is beautiful, and everything black is ugly and bad. And so that was ingrained through the schools and through the churches. And so when the countries got independence, they left the next white people, they called them in charge, the lighter skinned people. And so this is what I call inferiority complex. We have international inferiority complex, and it's so subconscious we don't even realize it. It goes as far as not just your skin, and people wanted to bleach the skin to be lighter, because in their eyes, you're prettier when you're lighter. You get more opportunities when you're lighter, right? And so this is the rationale behind all this bleaching. But it actually goes beyond that, because the products that God makes, or another country in Africa makes, the people don't know that God makes products, because for them it's made by black people, so it cannot be better than the one made by white people. So they would rather buy imports and white dolls, things made in Europe, as opposed to buying local items.
Mm.
That is self-hate. That is international inferiority complex
Yeah.
or self. And so we're trying to shift that by using the black dolls to tell them, to tell our daughters and how beautiful they are. And you're going to have a beautiful black doll that looks just like you, right? And I'm sure that you're aware of the tests that were done in the 60s with the 5 and 6 year olds
Yes.
who picked, okay, so that still exists today. Harrison, the one on CNN, what is his name? Did in 2018 or something. Had the same results. 5 and 6 year old black children picking the white doll as the doll that is the beautiful doll, the intelligent
Right.
doll, the smart doll. The black doll is the ugly doll, the bad doll,
Ugly.
the one that
Right.
today that
Yeah.
still persists. And so we have to do these little things to shift
Mhm.
those consciousness so we can begin to love ourselves. Because if
Yes.
we don't love ourselves, we can't empower ourselves. You
Well,
see? And so
I have to purchase my face cream in the States when I come because they only have bleach. They only have cream, a face cream here that has bleach in it. And every time I go into that Georgina's, I think it is,
mhm,
beauty supply. Yeah, I searched all in there. And I asked a young lady. I said, "Where are your other face cream? There's nothing with. Everything has bleach in it." And she was like, "Oh, yes, yes, but this is very good. This is very good." And I'm like, "No, that's not good for you. That's harmful to your skin. You should not be using that." So I have to get my face cream from the States and bring it back with me because I haven't been able to find anything, not here in Cape Coast area. And but
mhm.
it's sad because they think, "Oh, this is good. This is good."
Yeah,
Mm.
so we have a lot of local businesses and people who have local shea butter and cocoa butter products that actually promote. So when I'm doing the Girls Club program in the bags, I'm going to put locally made black soap with just black soap, locally made um, a cream, hand cream and face cream with shea butter, cocoa butter, and no preservatives and none of that other stuff. So whilst we are telling people to empower themselves and that they're beautiful just the way they are, we're also encouraging them to support the local economy.
Mm.
So the local face creams and the local soaps and the local deodorants and companies that make all these local items and local rice and coconut oil, we're encouraging our people to purchase those items because that's another form of empowerment,
Mm.
right? By supporting your local economy. And
That's
so it's a very long, it's a very far-reaching, um, very complex, very far-reaching model that we're doing here, right? And it may look like it's, even something as diverse, taking care of your neighborhood. If you love yourself and you love your community, you will never drop trash on the ground because you will have respect for your community and you would want it to be clean.
right.
And so it's so important. People think that it's a simple thing and it's just a matter of bleaching or just choosing the right foods, but it's very far reaching. And so the reverse is also far reaching. So the empowerment you feel individually will transcend and will now expand to your entire family and your community. And we can really see some changes like that. And so we're doing
Mhm.
important work. And, we should continue to do that and empower and support each other, in this great work that we're doing. I think somebody disappeared.
I
I'm
thought
sure
that
I've used it all the time. I'm sure I've used it
had
all my time.
had something, but I think she went off. Her video is off, but that was a great, so many great points, and there's so much work that needs to be done, and that we don't realize. Sometimes we think because we come from the U.S., we're in the U.S., that these things are polarized, but they're not. It's all over the world. Wherever we are as Black people, wherever we are, that's where the challenges are, and the struggles, and the issues, and the and where we have to regain that power. Deborah, did you want to bring something in? I think you were.
No, basically you covered, but something that you said, that I really love, you said the man in the mirror, and that's the ultimate thing, that man in the mirror, that we have to first deal with self in the aspects of, even I think when you had mentioned about working in the health department, and how display the things that's healthy, and so forth in eating, but just giving people these things is not going to, because it must first begin inward. And just giving someone something, displaying, you have the want and have the desire, as you said, to want to do better, to want the best for yourself, to make the right choices and all those things. And that's throughout, that spoke volume, and that is just so precise and so awesome, because it first begins with us inside. And even the decisions we make, that we will make right decisions that will bring about life, that will enhance our life. So I thought that was really powerful, absolutely powerful. And all that you said, I can go on in different things. I really don't have any questions. I just wish that it was really clear, because it was really powerful. All that you said was absolutely powerful and much necessary and much needed in our communities, truly in our communities, because so many of us are killing ourselves. So many of us don't have that self-love, and as you said, through the generations and through the colonize, and all that was it. This was all, it was strategic of what they did to bring us to a place, and even like you said, we're not even aware of it, not even conscious of that self-hate, because it really is very prevalent in our community, that we don't even realize. And that, you hear it sometimes. And that's why even, self-destruction and even harming one another within our communities. And all of this was strategically done to bring us to, and we need to be really awakened. But first, being able to be empowered, but first beginning within us and coming to realization, first coming to that place of being true to yourself. And because we need healing in our communities, because it's really a sad state of affairs, because even through the generations and all that transpire, you would think that we have achieved so much. In some areas we have, and in some areas we're so much the same. So I thank you for what you're doing. I mean, that's powerful, and it needs to be heard, and we need to really see what's going on. But first of all, looking within ourselves, and that we first be empowered, and that it is important that we empower one another. So I thank you. It was really a powerful presentation that you brought forth. As I said, I just wish it was absolutely clear, but it was very powerful. Thank you so much. Thank you so much for bringing that forth.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
So y'all want me to go segue into the next segment? Yeah. I'm sounding like Barry White. Y'all forgive me. I'm gonna
You
be
sound
quick.
all right, sis. You
I'll
sound
be
all right.
I'm very white.
I'll be quick so Cody can. But I just want to say yes. It was so many points, and it brought me back to, because I'm doing players after high school, right? What does that look like? And I'm gonna do it really quickly. However, she said something really key that I harp on. Our parenting style needs to change. We have information now that our foremothers and forefathers did not have. However, because we live in a very capitalistic society, it is keeping us working and chasing things that is really not helping us to build wealth. And because I have that homeschool hub, I always say our children are our wealth. That is a part of generational wealth building. And I would say that um, planning high school starts right at 13. And remember, I talked about the rites of passage that's missing in our community. Whether you are Hebrew, Jewish, Christian, African spirituality, the rites of passage ceremony has been taken from us. And that involves the whole entire community being involved in the children's upbringing, especially once they get to 13. Okay. And so in North America, because that's where, I'm taking this information from, we don't have that community. We're very individualistic. So what happens is by the time our children reach high school, there is nobody really guiding. I was teaching high school recently, and I know that for a fact that the children, even though they had counselors, nobody, the counselors who had checked out, yeah, the school system has checked out. So it is our responsibility as a community to be that covering for our children, because they have to grow up and get out of the public school system, and they have to grow into adults, productive adults. And it really starts there. However, by your junior year, because freshmen and sophomores, from my personal experience, they are still very immature. They sit in class and farting and stuff, and I'm like, y'all, what grade y'all in? And I can call it. But by the time junior year, you are taking your ACTs, SATs, you should be thinking about transitioning out of high school. So you're starting to plan there. And I pray that all of because the demographic of parenting looks different, y'all. We have a lot of single parenting going on. So I'm talking to the heavily on the single parenting, because that's just the demographics nowadays. That's what we're working with. And I always compel mothers, because I was a single mother as well before I got married. I compel mothers to really be involved in your children's upbringing, especially in their education, especially in 2025. So you need to encourage your children, because the counselors have checked out. Okay. So we really want our children to focus on their skills. Okay. So at age 13, they should have been coming into the kind of skills that they have. All right. They should be aware at 13, but we know. We know that's different here in America. So by the time they are 16, 17, they should really be honing in on their skill set, because they're getting ready to graduate. Some of the skill sets that they should hone in on, my biggest one, critical thinking, which most adults, we have a hard time with that. They don't really teach that anymore. But critical thinking, that is going to help empower us, especially our young ladies coming out of high school, making plans to be a young adult. Time management, we have to teach our young people how to manage their time. This is going to take the community. That goes with self management, how to communicate effectively, right? So I always pick on Gen Z. They always whining. They always complaining. So we have to teach them how to communicate effectively. And then we have some flaws in the other generations, because some generations didn't communicate. You just do what I say, and that's it. So social awareness. We've touched on this before with our special needs community. Okay. We have a lot of people with Asperger's and autism. And that's mostly a social, right, disorder. It can have cognitive disorder, but it's a lot to do with, you know, social skills. So we need to pay attention to these areas and help our children in that being organized. Okay. We heavy on our, I love everybody, but you know, I'm a special education teacher as well. We heavy on our ADD, ADHD community, and they thrive when they are organized. So these are skill sets that is going to take them, because a lot of what I see working with high schoolers going out, they do not have these skill sets. And so they're 17, 18, 19, 20, 21 in high school. Okay. And they don't have skill sets, and they're being tossed out, and then they're not productive adults, and then we are fussing at them, but I see how they are not, you know, being prepared. um Going into the next one, emotional intelligence, something that we're bringing to the table. Hopefully I can get that started this summer. Emotional intelligence, teaching our community how to be aware of your emotions, how to regulate yourself, because you cannot go into your place of work cussing out your boss. So as we see on the TikTok, throwing stuff across the counter, grabbing people up, you know, they cannot emotionally regulate themselves. And that is not taught at all in our community. Like, what feelings? Shut up crying and get it. You know, that's what we are used to. And we can see how that has played out in this last generation. And not the grandbabies, but I'm talking about Gen Z, man. They off the chain with their emotions, because I work with them so much. And they'll tell me, you know, I don't know how to manage my emotions. I'm angry all the time. I need counseling. So they are aware that they need counseling, but nobody is setting them up for this. Financial literacy. Ooh, that's a stickler in our community, because that's a part of our mental wellness journey. And you can hear crickets when I bring up financial literacy, what we are, how we are to budget, what's a good budgeting plan, where do you put your money? Are you saving? Can you save $5 a month? And we're talking to adults. I haven't even got to the children. Can you save $5? Can we save $10? And that's a big that's a hard thing in our community. And we definitely not teaching it to the children, because the adults are having a hard time with financial literacy. And these are all things that harm our community from empowering our young people to be the adults that they need to be. And because I'm in education, you see how education is deteriorating. Why? Because we have AI that's going to take over, which they have an AI classroom. Was it in New Jersey? Somewhere up north, east, where that actual robot was teaching the children. Okay, so in our community, if our children cannot read at grade level, a lot of adults cannot read at grade level, and we cannot comprehend what we are reading, then by the time AI come on the scene to tell us what we can and cannot do, they change history. We don't know that they our children, because look, we gonna transition on. So we talk about them grandbabies. They're not gonna know that the history has been changed because AI said this is the way it goes. The kids not gonna be able to critically think. These are all important, and it starts. That's why I say it starts at 12, 13, sometimes 11, because they're so aware, like babies can operate the phone now. So according to their awareness, that's when you should start this empowerment journey with all of these skill sets, especially financial literacy, because right now reparations is a hot topic. And I'm like, y'all know good and well. Nah, come on. Come on. They give us $500,000, and then that's nice, but we got to be serious about this. And empowerment starts with correct.
And it'll be gone in
No,
six
I was trying
months.
not to say that, but we know, my husband and I know personally a couple who had a $500,000, and this is true, it was gone in a year. And they did not buy a house.
Hmm. Wow.
Okay. These are real, and this is why, what we're doing, I know, it's gonna take some time for people to warm up to us. But what they know, what we're saying is the truth. And you know, it's taboo to talk like this. Will you talk like this? No, they're not talking like this, not in the church. They're not talking like this in your synagogue, your assembly. Everybody is talking about end times and how we're going to escape. But I'm sorry, we have generations that need to be empowered, right, to survive your end time theory, right? And these are skill sets in our community that is being lost. And I believe we did have it somewhat, you know, especially with the silent generation, you know, um, what am I, Gen X and then millennial, the baby boomers. We kind of have it, yeah,
Baby boom
but
generation. Mhm. Baby
it's
boomers.
a lost art because of the single parent epidemic, right? You can't be in two places at one time. I know, mamas. I can hear you. I can't be in two places at one time. I gotta go to work. I gotta pay these bills. I understand. I understand. However, if we think differently, move differently, come back to communal, um, not communal living so much, but communal thinking, community thinking, and first be mentally sound so that we could trust one another. Because right now we don't trust nothing nobody is saying. That sounds
Right.
that was nice what she said, but I still don't trust nobody. So we have to break these barriers, especially with our young women. And we're dealing with women. We haven't forgot about the men, but we're dealing with women right now, fellas. Empowering our young women because they are the mothers that's raising the next generation. Let's just keep it real. Like the mothers, we are the ones raising the children up. And my husband said that. Um, 2 years old, under two, they don't know you. They know their mama, especially if they breastfeed. The daddies, you there, blah, blah, blah. But mama, and she's empowering you from the womb on up. So I'm going to introduce Sakoni because I'm gonna let her tell us how she has planned her life after high school and what she is doing now. So I'm going to read a little bit about her. She was born in Winston-Salem, North Carolina, to her mother Lisa Wilson and father Christopher Willis. She also has a younger brother named Chris Willis. She's currently 27 years old. She's still living in Winston-Salem, North Carolina. She attended the illustrious North Carolina Central University and graduated in 2020 with a Bachelor of Science degree in behavioral social sciences. She is currently attending Davidson Davy Community College, obtaining a medical laboratory technological degree. You go, girl. All right, I will let you go, Mr. Cody.
Thank you so much for that wonderful introduction. Um, so, I loved all the points that you brought out. One of the points I was actually going to talk about was time management in college, because it's such an important tactic to have. And sometimes you get that time management thing last minute. Unfortunately, that was me. Um, Coming from, I guess, like living sort of a sheltered lifestyle after um, in high school and then transitioning into an HBCU, it was definitely a culture shock for me. Considering my high school was pretty diverse, but being around like above exceptional Black women, Black men, a Black culture, it was something that I've always longed for. and coming in contact with it was a culture shock. So I definitely met a lot of different people. So learning how to manage my time, which was my number one focus, was school and getting good grades and stuff like that, but also having a social life during that time. So time management was something that I definitely had to learn and learn it fast. Um, um, and honestly, I think it's kind of uh, unforgiving to allow a 17 and 18-year-old decide what they are going to do for the rest of their lives. So I was one of the people who had to change their major, and it's okay. I just definitely want to um, say that it is okay to change your mind, because most people who do graduate don't even use their degree, which I did not. So I was able to find something that I was absolutely passionate about. And it took me graduating from college to find something that I actually wanted to do and to put forth the effort into that. So, and that's why you see a lot of people. I mean, in the classes that I am in today, I I think my class is filled with 21-year-olds, 22. Um, One lady in my class, she has to be about like in her 60s. So it's definitely never too late to decide what you want to do in life, and to keep going forward. And that comes with, empowering yourself no matter how old you are. Um, I think it was pretty funny. Before we even started, Rabbits was bringing out the fact that she's known me ever since I was 5 years old, and she's known my mother and my father, and that whole struggle about my mother wanting me to go to a technical um, college and my father wanted me to go to a university. Um, it's funny because I also wanted to go to a university as well, so I got the luxury of doing it twice. So I got to see both sides of the coins, and I will say I probably should have went to the technical college first, but and saved a lot more money. It's cheaper and it's a quicker
It
way to
is.
get to where you want to be in. But that's fine. I use that as a learning lesson, so it's for the future generations to teach them to do a little bit more research, as much as you can. Um, yeah, mine is not that long. So if you guys do have any points or questions, I can definitely elaborate on that. But I am done. Thank you so much.
Well, Sakoni, what were some of the goals that you had when you were in high school that you feel that you were glad that you looked a little further ahead, um, concerning your now that you're a older adult?
So my goals concern like in high school, even in middle school, I've always wanted to go to college. Always, always, always. Even then I was just kind of obsessed with what college would I even get into or where would I even go. So um being able to even get that opportunity was a blessing to me, and being able to graduate as well. Um, but I knew in high school, because most of the classes that I did take, like AP courses, there were a lot of Black people in my honors courses, but the AP courses, I was sometimes the only Black girl, or there was probably like 2 or 3 Black people in my class. I knew in high school I wanted to be surrounded with people that looked like me, who were exceptional people, because I felt like I had the rest of my life to be around people who didn't. I might as well at least have a say so of what type of community I wanted to be involved with and to indulge in. And I'm grateful to have that experience, because even in college, I was really shy. I stayed very secluded unless I knew that person. Unless I knew that person. But of course, in college, I didn't know anyone. So my freshman year, I was pretty much to myself, which I hated. But my sophomore year is where I decided to venture out a little bit and get to know people on campus. That's why I joined community service organizations where I was able to interact with people and also with the community in Durham. I volunteered at at the local elementary school where because to graduate from our school we have to get volunteering hours. So I volunteered at the school, the elementary school, and it was really fun. The little kids are so sweet, so kind. They're a little rambunctious, but those are kids. I also volunteered at a church not too far from Durham, from my campus as well, because I didn't have a car, so I couldn't drive there. Um, and I was able to get to know the people there and um, even the community, because I think we're like giving away clothes, just so how was helping there. Also getting to know people on campus because we had a lot of campus events where we taught Black women how to network. We also had like natural hair classes, and just to get to know our sisters there. So it was really nice. It was something that I do encourage a lot of people to do on campus. If you're someone who is like me and who just needs a little bit of a nudge, join a community service organization to where you're able to help out around your community and also get to know people on your campus.
And also, didn't you remember you did, because I gave you a bunch of my purses. What was that program? Wasn't that, it was some kind of program where you guys were giving out like purses,
Yeah, it had
handbags,
to have been
and
for my Collegiate 100, an event or something. We were giving away bags. It had to have been for that.
mm,
Yes, 'cause that
yeah,
was for
that was
hours.
great.
I remember this. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, I did.
That was a great program.
I was
Well,
doing. Oh,
oh, go ahead. Go
no.
ahead.
As I was listening to Saucony and even as I listened to certain things that you had said when you were younger, and how your parents weren't, for college, and I can say that, my dad, as many know, got killed when I was 14, but in my latter part of high school, and I did business in high school, and I even was on a co-op where you work one week and you go to school one week, and so my gear was always kind of in business and computers. And my mother encouraged us, even my sister, college, whatever our decision was, she, you know the only thing she always felt that daughters should be home until they're married, but if you decide to go to college or however, that was, because she was somewhat, I would say, an empowered woman. She was a pastor, and so she wasn't like the norms in essence somewhat. But I say that to say that, as Saucony was saying, in high school I didn't have a clue really what I wanted to do. Even out of high school, I went to a community college, at first, and I was studying computers because, I love computers, numbers, and different things in that aspect. But that wasn't absolutely what I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. But I worked with computers. I worked, and then I worked for the city. And I was an excellent typist. I mean, I used to type almost 90 words a minute, so, and knew shorthand. So it was things that I just knew how to do in the business aspect, but it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Work, as I said, with computers as well. But I still was I just never, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I always wanted security. So I made sure, like, even when I worked temp, I used to even work temp on temp jobs with computers at the banks, and they offered me really good salaries to go with them. But I didn't give up my city job because I was always about benefits. I don't know if y'all might go under. And look, years later, banks did go under. So I have a brother who told me, he said, I always thought old, because I always was about, um, you know, security in regards to, and then making a salary where I know I could live on my own. So anyway, I say all of that to say I then, worked for health and hospitals. Then I worked in the police department because there was no, they weren't, there was a freeze on promotional, and I always tried to, always to do better in essence. And then I was encouraged to, take the test for a police officer because that was never my desire. Never thought about being a police officer, but one of the detectives, and as I was there anyway, I did. In essence, and as Aviyah said, Yah has, I believe everything was in the ultimate plan, in essence of our decisions and different things that we make, because the word declares that, and I'm going to bring in the word that our steps are ordered by the Most High. In essence, I say that to say that when I went in the police department, I did, we had college classes and we did social, we had to have a little bit of everything: police science, law, and social science, dealing with humans, and that kind of drew me. I even remember as a teenager, and people would always come to me with their problems, and I was always a listener, and not all the times I would have answers, but they would always come to me. So that seemed like that has always been somewhat of a counselor. So years later, I found myself even in ministry as counseling, other women and empowering, and different things in that aspect, and counseling through someone else who just, kind of felt that that was my, and in essence, even when I was in the police department, I had co-workers coming to me and just telling me, and even I remember even in a roll call one time, that even a lieutenant who was doing the roll call, when somebody had got an incident that happened, and he was arrested. It was domestic violence, and also his wife was on the job at another precinct, and they were saying, we have the unit where you can go and for counseling, we have counselors. And then he says, and we have Mrs. Hoskins. I mean, he didn't even say officer, where different ones would come to me, and I was just, some people even wanted to just work with me because they wanted to, either advice or just to hear them, or, and I just spoke how the Ruach gave me. So, and then I'm saying all of this because I did go back to school. I started taking classes for social work, and I didn't follow all the way through. I have the credits and different things in that aspect. And so more recently we had a women's thing, and there were those who were professionals who were there. And now we're talking of starting a nonprofit and some things where now I may be going back to get certification, even with my experience, so we can start this nonprofit. And we're really kind of bringing it, but it's all just kind of being thrown at me. Now, mind you, I'm closer to 70. I'm 67, be 68 this year, but I am going to go and get the certifications and degree, whatever. And I was talking to a niece of mine just recently who's going for her doctorate's degree. She did all the things. She's just waiting for, she has to get certain things. And then I remember when she got her her bachelor's degree, she said, I hate school. I'm not going back. And she's a social worker. I'm not going back. I hate school. And she wound up going and getting her master's. And now she's soon to get her doctorate. And as her and I was talking, she said, "Aunt Debbie, and she was just encouraging me. And she's in her 50s, and she, as she was encouraging, just saying, well, and I'm glad I went. And as I'm talking, she encouraged me. So now I'm really like, yeah, this is what I have to do. So as Coney said, and it doesn't, the age, you just don't always know. You just don't. I didn't. I did, my career. I'm retired, and I get a, good pension, all of that. But it's still, you're still, and I'm a pastor, a congregational leader and so forth. But life still, because there's still growth. We still, as long as we're here, there's no, to y'all be the glory, to all the praise there.
There's a saying that say that we are spiritual beings having a human experience. And sometimes we get it twisted. We get it twisted.
You just don't know.
The other way.
You just don't know. You just don't know. So, yeah. But
go ahead, Yadida.
Knowing that you're able to do it and encourage, being encouraged and being empowered to know, and this is what we do for one another, that we continue to build one another. But as it's been said, you got to first, look at that man in the mirror and first within yourself. And that's more important than anything.
Yeah. Yadida, go ahead.
Yes,
you were trying
so
to.
I was saying that we're spiritual beings having a human experience, and especially when it comes to African people, that's why they call us soul people. We have that little extra connection to the Most High. It's just who we are. And I think when we allow that to guide us, to be our anchor, you can't go wrong. And so, they say when man plans, God laughs, because
he laughs.
Right, because sometimes we don't leave that little space. We have it all in our head, and we don't leave that space to remember that, but I'm here being guided by a supreme being, and there may be things that supreme wants me to do that I need to be focused on, and I need to do that. And so it behooves us to remember that. And if we make our spiritual wellness our core, now it has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with the connection that we have with the Creator, whatever you call the Creator. It has to do with that connection that you have. That should be our paramount goal in life from an early age. Let's get connected. Let's get that voice. Let's get those messages. Let's get that guidance so that we can make our calling and election sure. Meaning whatever it is that we're called to do, but if the voice is absent, or if we are not connected to the voice, it may take us a while. If some people never get to that calling and election and it being sure, because they're just disconnected altogether. And so, but that's part of that, what I call a wellness wheel. There's your spiritual wellness, or everything rotates around your spiritual wellness. And so if you're spiritually anchored and well and stable, the other components will come clean. That mental wellness will come and be okay. That emotional wellness, I heard Christina talk about that. The emotional wellness is important. We choose how to feel. The feeling shouldn't choose us. We should be the ones choosing whether we're happy or sad or grateful, or choose higher spiritual feelings instead of the more negative ones. So we have to be in control of our lives and all those different, our financial wellness, our physical wellness. But it all starts with us being spiritually connected to the Creator, so that we know where we're going. That's our compass to guide us, to navigate whichever one part of that wellness journey that we're on. And that's an important.
There we go. That is very important. So you know what? We're gonna let that throw us right into dating. What does that look like? So when we are at that age of high school, um, moving into college, how does that look? How do we, because this is a different world from when, we in the 70s when we were, in high school, and we were the age of dating, it was like, okay, I remember some of my friends that their parents, and I remember when I went on my first little date that my date's father took us there to the restaurant and sat outside in the car and waited for us. And then, it was supervised. So that's how it looked, back in the day. So what is this? What does it look like now for our young sisters that are that age, high school, going into college?
I can't even begin to imagine, but I do know from my working with the health department and working in the STD promotion, prevention, treatment, what have you. We had a very rude awakening, and this was in the 80s. This was in the 80s and the maybe the 1990s. We had to get retraining on how that generation or these next generations, how they thought about dating and sex, which was totally opposite from what we knew. We had to learn a new language because even in the, you're teaching STDs and you're teaching sexuality and you're teaching all of these things in schools and in community centers. And we're finding out that the way that young people think about sex is totally different. Like, for instance, they only think that sex has to do with vaginal sex. They don't. So we'll ask them, well, are you having sex? No, they're doing everything.
I found that.
And so,
Yes.
the way that this generation looks at intimacy and sexuality and sex is totally different from what we know. And so, and not that, I think it's a matter of having discussions, having communication, allowing young people to be able to be free and expressing themselves into their thought patterns, what they're thinking. So one, we get to learn and we get to know what the thoughts are. And we also can share our own experiences and maybe, what is good and what is not so good about some of those thought patterns. And so that's what we found out in the health department, that channel of communication had to be open. And so, I had staff who were not, younger, but not as young as those, but they were closer to age. So the peer-to-peer model emerged. And so rather than listen to someone who was, their mother's age, they preferred to listen to someone who was their sibling's age or their own age. And so we started working with younger people to become peer educators, to begin to provide information about what was safe and what was not safe, whether it was dating or in sexuality or anything like that. And so it's a whole different world that I know.
Well, let's hear from Sakoni. I see. I think Christina, you were laughing.
Hey,
so I know you probably had.
She is right, and I want to hear Sakoni because Sakoni comes from a community orientated. Because that's what I want to ask her. If she did not have the community that she had, being raised up in Torah, having her rites of passage, how, based on her other friends, do she think life would have been different? Because it's different out here in these streets, especially when it comes to dating and sex and how the young women think about sex. It's y'all, you ain't ready to hear what you really think you want to hear because I've let them talk to me and I have to, I'm 51 and I'm like, okay, don't, don't overreact because I need for them to trust.
You want to hear it exactly because they need to
I want to
trust
hear
you. Right.
their
Exactly.
thought process with sex is now I'm just, y'all know me. Okay, so they have body counts, and that's a normal thing in I'm talking about women. Because back then, body
Right.
counts is sexual partners. So they keep tab of body counts. It's no longer taboo to be a young lady that haven't had sex. So now, it's I got 5 body counts. I got 8 body counts. And they telling
You know, they're doing that here. And I've been talking to some young men, and even here in Ghana, yeah, they said that the young women, ladies, the
yes,
men are saying, I have a problem finding a woman, a young
yes,
lady who I want to marry because the women are now like, I want 4 or 5
yeah.
boyfriends because guess what? I can get this from this one. I can get this from this one. I can get this from this one over here, and this one can do this over here. So I was surprised to hear that. So I guess
Yeah,
that's
it's
all
all
over the
over.
world.
And like Sister Yadida was saying, sex is different now. They don't consider as long as it's not penetration to them, they're not having sex.
Right.
But when you
Consider themselves
yeah,
still a
still a
virgin.
virgin. So people who say they are virgins from our thought process, we would be like, no, you're not. But from their thought
No, you're
process,
not.
they are because they haven't been
Right.
penetrated. They're doing everything else.
Penetrated.
And so we see this spill over into the faith. Just keep it real.
Heard
This
that.
this don't negate people that's walking in faith, whether in Christianity, whether
Oh no.
so
Sex is an equal
yeah, so
opportunity.
everybody is doing this per se.
Right.
And we have to be
Right.
aware of that. And I'm not condoning it, but I am aware so that now I can say, sister, as I was a single mom, I know, listen, it's still the same. Your vagina is still the same. Back when creation was made, back when Eve, all the way up to 2025. And we have to talk about vagina health. And so when I start talking to them, instead of saying, keep yourselves pure before marriage, they're going to check out. They're going to check out. Now, that's what you really want to say.
Yeah.
But I come from a health standpoint where I'm not getting graphic on here, but with those girls, I have to get graphic because as a
You
nurse,
do.
as a
Yeah.
former nurse, I've taken care of elderly women who were very promiscuous and they could not hold their bowels because they told me
Right.
that they were,
Right.
having anal sex so much. Y'all, people
So much.
service and stuff. I
Absolutely.
was fresh nurse and Christina and the
Absolutely.
nurse, I had to hold the lady down because her cervix fell out and she took her hand and shoved it back. These are things from sexual activity from being, I know people in college that loved rough sex until their cervix was turned backwards. They had to be rolled out of the dormitory into the emergency room. Like we got to get off of I know we all are believers in, I understand that, but we have to talk from a place to where we're going to get them to think about that. So I know Sakoni is different, but I want to hear her. If she didn't have this community, from 5 on up and looking at her friends, I know she ain't going to spill all the tea, but I want to hear some of it.
You grown now, Sakoni. You can tell it. Oh no.
No, I will say if I did not have the community that I have now, I probably would be a single mother. Um, it's kind of it's crazy. The dating world is honestly crazy now. That's why like right now I'm just like I don't even participate in it. I've got school, and that's the only thing I really care about right now. So I probably am not the best person, and I think I've checked out from dating for like 3 years now. Um, but yeah, I mean, Rabbits, I've told you about him, but you know, I had a relationship that I was in for like 2 years, and then after that, like after that relationship was over, he got another girl pregnant. So I think I just checked out. Honestly,
Mhm.
I've been over it.
And that's what I'm hearing, because Lori and I, you know, speak very openly about that. My daughter, our daughter, and she's pretty much in that same place. It's like, does it make any sense to? I mean, because it is just so crazy. But I did not realize until, I guess Lori must have been about 5 years old. So I'm thinking I must have been about 35 when I realized that the generation under us was thought that they were still virgins, um, because they were just having they weren't penetrated. It was just like oral sex. So they felt like, no, I'm still a virgin for my husband. And I was like, baby girl, I'm sorry, you're not. You've been exposed. I mean, you are not a virgin. And I remember because I was working with a young lady, and she was white, Caucasian, and that's what all of their friends, and she was college age, working. I worked for a group of lobbyists for the glass bottle industry. And so we had a lot of people that would come in, that would go to the legislators and, talk up for the, try to boost for the bottle industry, glass industry. And this young man would get to know, people around there. So we would have people come in, sometimes young students, and they would, that was a whole nother thing. And I'm looking at them like, okay, are you for real? So that just changing that mindset, or changing, how did we get there?
Well, we're
How
there.
did we get
We're there now. We're there now. So
Yeah.
I think that the conversations around promiscuity and all of this other stuff is very loud, and so we can't
Yeah.
allow that loudness to drown out common sense. And so, even
There
though
you
it seems daunting and it seems as if it's overwhelming because there's so much other stuff, we're kind of outnumbered. I think the conversation still has to continue, and we have to find ways to communicate that, to keep the communication open, to stay on top of things, that don't close our ears and our eyes and shut it out, but know what's going on, with the intention of giving an alternative. And when you're a nurse, or when you come from a health background where you have to deal with this stuff realistically, it's easier. But we can't stop having the conversations about,
Right.
Get abstinence is the best way. We still continue to have that
Mhm.
conversation. Abstinence is still the best way.
Yeah,
If you can't be abstinent,
absolutely.
if you cannot be abstinent for whatever reason, there's temptation, there's pressure, then these are the other next best things you can do. But we didn't stop having the
Right.
conversation because
Right.
there was so much sexual activity going on, and we didn't
Right.
have to stop talking about abstinence just because there was so much, everybody was doing it. We still kept that, and we
Right.
still have to.
There you go.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So someone is ask the question. So how do we help our children not give up on the possibility of healthy marriages? So one thing young people have to see. My husband and I always wanted our children to see what a healthy marriage was, to see what a nurturing mother is, to see what a present father and light of the house is there. You know, that man, that figure. A man child needs to a lot of times see a man walking out that position. So it's really, I think one of the problems with is that either our children see their parents with this beautiful or this marriage or relationship, and it's been stationary, and they don't see that is a norm. So then it's a thought, how can this happen with me? Yeah, my mom and dad look like that, but I don't see that as the norm. I think they have to see, your children have to see those examples, because our children learn by they are visual learners. Black children are visual learners. We are hands-on learners, and that's why we are so brilliant. That's why we can go in like the gentleman who performed the first, bypass surgery on blue babies for them the oxygen to get to the heart in order for them to survive and breathe. The man was just brilliant, didn't even have a PhD, didn't go to medical school. He was brilliant, would do surgeries with his eyes closed, because he said it's just like walking in a room. You know where everything is, and you just he closed his eyes and did surgeries. I mean, we are visual and hands-on learners. So I think our children have to see those examples.
Yeah.
But
Go ahead, Deborah. Go ahead, Prophet. Go ahead.
I'm not. I agree with that, but we don't have that today. A lot of in our society, we have more single parents, and
That's true.
And the sad thing is what we're hearing about them in high school and so forth. Listen, it even goes down. I have fifth graders. I did half the school program, and these were even in elementary school. But I say this to say is that as you said, Avia, in regards to see, and many of them are seeing that their parents are doing the same thing. The same thing, I'm telling you. And even those in the faith, something that Christina mentioned, we're seeing, I mean, dealing with women who give in to these different things, and they're professing to be walking, even it's talking in Torah and giving it. It's just really, we're in a time now that, I mean, look at even what's going on in a lot of the Hebrew communities with this multiple marriages and the things that's even going on in some of these issues of some of them. One thing my nephew said to one of the young ladies, I'm just saying in general of just finding out, he says, why would you want to be somebody's sloppy second, or third or anything in that aspect? But something that Christina mentioned is bringing in the health card, of, the effects of what you're doing, what the effects
Right.
of what is it doing to your body. And then also trying to teach them, to empower them that you are a queen, you are special. And this is where I really try to emphasize the fact that, don't get caught, get up, realize who you are and how special you are. Because if you really come to a place of defining and understanding that you are special. You're not just going to allow and just like listening to Zakonia. Yes, she was raised, you know, in the community, but kind of understand, like she said, I check out because I'm not going to allow myself to go, you know. And this is something that we have to kind of instill in them, because sad to say, I find some of these young people are more how would I say, have more mature than than those of their parents' ages.
Older.
Y'all laughing. I am absolutely serious.
Yeah.
I am seeing that a lot of the older generation is just off the chain. And some of these younger ones are like, you know what? I'm gonna be or even professing that I'm, you know, I'm not allowing anyone to touch my body, you know, in essence. And I'm hearing this from younger women, younger people, because they see the generations that they just lost it. Some of them just lost it, I'm telling you. So I mean, I'm saying it from even another perspective, because we do see, and don't get me wrong, just as Christina was talking about the number count and all of that, yes, that's true. But you know, and just as you're saying, what they see, and as a being that where they visually, they're not seeing that. They're definitely not seeing that, because a lot of the older generation, they're not. It ain't happening in them.
Yeah, some of us have been very bad examples too. Very bad examples. And because a person has age on them, there's something my mother used to always say: there's no fool like an old fool. Because some of us are gray haired and doing things like what a 20-year-old, you would expect a 20-year-old to do. But I know it's because we're coming from a broken place. People are broken when they do stuff like that. And I think that goes back to Yedita's talk concerning, you know, being either powerful or powerless. And that if you don't feel, I've talked to women and said, you know, stop, make him deserve you. How about that? Instead of just, okay, whatever it is, we go out this first night, boom, that's what we do. This is just what we do. Make him deserve you. How about that? But we get to a place where we're so desperate that we find ourselves in that real place of desperation, because we don't have that self-love that Yedita was talking about. That self-love, that's part of the empowerment. I mean, we need to talk about doing an empowerment conference for grown women. Well, grown, grown, gray head,
yes.
Yes. It's like you smack them upside the head and say, what are you doing? What are you doing? You're just and just a bad example for our younger sisters. And then we have accepted this thought, and we know biblically, scripturally, we can see that during those times in the region of the land, and even here, you can have more than one wife. But let me tell you what the Ghanaian men that I have spoken to said. More than one wife? No. Everyone I talked to said, I don't want more than one wife. I want peace in my home. And more than one wife is not peace in the home. And then one of them said, more than one wife is too expensive. Wives have children, and children have babies. I mean, those babies, you gotta do school supplies and school fees, and I don't have that kind of money. One wife is good enough for me. So when we get this thought, especially within our Hebrew communities, that we and get 3 or 4 wives, and then they're all on welfare while I'm sitting at home playing on video on YouTube, being a YouTube, trying to teach somebody the Torah while my wife's out getting their welfare checks. All of that foolishness is going on. And that is not setting a good example for our younger generation. And we just gotta, Lord Father, I don't know. We
I, I'm laughing, but it's true. And I see Nesha's comments, and I just wanted to say because I I stand on both sides, right? So I think like people that have a testimony, that have good marriages, we need to, and not just testify in a very, I don't know how to say it. Nobody wants to hear the rhetoric. They want real talk, right? They want the real talk of a marriage and what that looks like. So because I was a single mother of five, okay, five, I was poor, 5 children. Don't ask me. It's a long story how I got there. Come from a middle class background, but ended up where I ended up in Gary, Indiana, the ghetto, what we would call the slum ghetto. And I was able to take my middle class background and pour that into my children, even though I was having children out of wedlock. Then, when I had this encounter with the Most High, even though I had been walking with Him, but there was an encounter I had, and He told me, myself, that I love to play the victim. And I went on a mental health journey right before I met my husband, and that was age 32. And I had to come to myself and say these decisions that I made, was reckless, and that out of all of the relationships and all of the problems I had, I was the common denominator. So at first it started with me really getting inside myself, saying that I'm worth more. I know I have 5 children, but if that means checking out, no more nothing, no more relationships, you need to deal with you. And so that's where I was. And then boom, I was set up on a blind date with my husband. Now we've been married 17 years. So my husband adopted my children, gave them his last name. And I like to tell the testimony because at first I was ashamed to tell that testimony. I was ashamed for people to know that I was a single mother and that, I was at Alabama State studying justice, wanted to be a lawyer. How did you go from that to single mother? I was ashamed. And I realized the empowerment that I have with this testimony will help to shape the future generation. And they have to see it. So that goes to Robin's point that growing up, I took my time with the Most High to pray a lot and make my children crack jokes because none of them are married. Their ages 31, 30, 28, 26, 23, and they have no babies and they are not married. Okay. And I believe I have broken that generational curse through a lot of work, though, through a lot of work on myself and getting myself in order and also allowing the children to see a healthy relationship and to learn what type of man that I really needed versus the type of man that I thought I wanted. That the truth told me I didn't even know what I wanted until I met my husband. And so the women don't even know what they want yet. And I always ask a woman, you try to get married, what type of man do you like? Because the type of husband that I have, I realize I like an assertive man. I like a man that has a lot of confidence. I like a man that could protect me and provide instead of being very sensitive, even though he can be. But I prefer my husband to be assertive, confident, a protector, and a provider. And I know we would think, well, that's all women know, because some women need a sensitive man.
yes,
They don't really need his money. They just need his
Right.
You need to be honest with yourself to know what type of man that you need, right? And that changed when I met my husband, and I didn't even know that. And so my children have checked out like Saucony because I was raising them in Tor. The older ones, they were like maybe 10, 11, 12, and then the younger ones, were younger than that. So I got them, I guess at a good time where they now have checked out of dating. We're trying to encourage them, but they said, Mom, because we had one, my daughter Mela, that was on, and she went through one crazy Negro, just one, and we got that together. And she said, I'm done. I'm focusing on myself. I'm focusing on my career. Even Matthew, we're like, Matt, you're 28. What are you doing? And he like, Mom, I'm looking, but the women are very promiscuous. I take them out on a date.
That's my son. He says the same thing. He says the same thing. He checked that. He's
like, Ma, and he's a business person. So each one of them, Angelique ain't studying nobody right now. Rainbow told me the other day, I don't think I'm having children. It's too expensive out here. They're waiting. So to Prophetess point, there is a remnant of children that's on the opposite side of the spectrum, where we have the ones that's just wild and out there, and then we have the ones that's like way on the other side, like, nah, I'ma wait. I'ma wait this out until I get a little bit older. And hopefully that as we are continuing to talk about mental wellness, because that is a hot topic in all communities, I see that by the time that they get a little bit older, because even the men are talking about it now. We have Jason Wilson, who's hot on the scene with that book, and he's getting a lot of attention from men. So that because we women just can't be the ones on here talking. The men have to engage, and they are. So I'm seeing that remnant coming, and our children are doing right by waiting, because there's a timing, I guess, that's going to happen where those that are waiting will meet. And I just believe that, because I believe what the Most High has done for me. And that's why I tell my testimony. I've been on both sides of the track. That's why I don't let single mothers off the hook. No, you will not get off the hook, because I was a single mother too. I was poor too. And I had to pour into my household. I had to choose to live a certain type of way so that I could be at my children's school. I could be at church with them. I had to live a certain way. So the way that I live now was not the way that I lived raising them, because I chose to pour into them. Mainly, like my son said, we grew up in the church. Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, and so in the hood, they didn't get a chance to be hood because I had them in church or at school. And so single mothers, I'm never going to let them off the hook. There's a choice. There's a choice in how you can raise your children until your significant other come. And then second, you need to know what type of man you really like. If you don't know what type of man you really like, then you need to, you know, abstinence. And we still have to say, close your legs. Like they told me, nobody told you to open your legs and have all those kids. Quit crying and get up and take care of these children. So close your legs and find out who you are. You are the common denominator and why you cannot have authentic relationships. And then find out what type of man that you want to spend the rest of your life with, because you can't just keep letting these men, especially these in faith men, come and say Jesus or say Yahweh or Yahuwah, and you automatically go with them because they know the Bible and they have a title in front of their name. You don't know what type of man you want. You just want what would look like it. But you have a right from the Most High to know what type of man that you want to spend. You have a choice. You don't have to accept anything. If y'all can't take nothing, quit accepting anything. Learn it's okay to sit and empower yourself. And that's another thing, because I know we're talking about this, but a lot of male chauvinist people like men do not like this topic. They think we are feminists, right? When we get off the air, they're gonna say they promote feminism. No, we're not. No, we're not, and that's because there's a mental health epidemic in the community that we
Right.
trying to tackle, and
That's
it's
right.
so hard because there's so many facets. Like every time we have a segment, we got to get back to that mental health, because no matter how we
Right.
talk, if somebody is mentally unwell, all of this goes in one ear and out the next, because as soon as they get off the call, that bipolar go kick in, that schizophrenic go kick in, all of those personalities going to kick in, and they are going to forget everything that we have said. So I digress. I'm
Yeah. You know, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to close out because and this is good because we kind of gotten into our next week's topic. You just gotta love yourself enough to believe that you deserve better. My goodness. I mean, and it's sometimes if a woman doesn't realize that she deserves better, then she will accept whatever. And until it gets bad. It's good until it's not. So we just even in raising our girls and teaching them to know what is good and what to accept. And because you really know, and I would always tell women, I told all of my, when me and my husband got married, I had very young little sisters. And so they all looked to me. I was the oldest one of all of them, all nine. Well, there was 10 and one died. She got hit by a car, but I was the oldest of all of them. And I used to always say, look, a man always knows the difference. He can see you. He knows the difference between a bologna sandwich and filet mignon. He knows the difference. And if you carry yourself like a bologna sandwich, guess what? He's going to use you just like a bologna sandwich. But we have to get to a place where we know our worth, and that's part of the empowering. And men who have problems with us talking about empowering women, you know, I just don't even have anything to say about that. I mean, because there are we have the right, and we see it scripturally. We see women being empowered in the scripture, and of course we want to turn a blind eye to that, and then we want to act like all the women in the scripture, you know, was sitting around playing with sheep out in the field and picking potatoes. But no, there were great women in the scripture, and they were smart, and they were intuitive, and they were inventors, and we didn't just become this. We didn't just become what we are, but it's always been like that. So if they have a problem with that, then they don't know the scripture. So we're going to go ahead and roll right on into our ending points, our ending comments. So didn't realize we would go this long, but I think it's been really good. And just want to say thank you, and just, I mean, this has been really, really good, and I'm excited now about the next segment.
Yes, well, I guess I'll go right into and we thank our panelists. It's awesome. I could just see another thing coming out of this as
Yes,
we get with our
absolutely.
rites of passage, and how, you know, the community can come together. I just got so many thoughts running through my head. So thank you all again. I think we all will be in contact with you all again really soon. So our email again is the righteous view 01 at gmail.com. Please send topics that you feel will be beneficial. If you have a degree, or special training in a specific area related to women's health and would like to be a special guest, please email your bio and we will review it and reply as soon as we can.
Yes, I just want to say I truly enjoyed you, Yedidiah. Thank you so much. And Sakoni, it was just awesome. Both of you really imparted so much wisdom, so much that was brought forth. It was beautiful. And to you, the audience, praise Yah. If you have enjoyed this podcast so far, please tune in and tell a friend. Next week we will continue. Well, actually, next week we will continue with the discussion concerning. So, you say you want to get married? Tune in next week. Thank you. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank you for inviting us.
Thank
We
you.
want to thank our guest panelists, Yedida Yehuda, for bringing your professional expertise and introducing your programs. They're awesome for our viewers. And Sakoni, we just love you, love you, love you. Our baby, Sakoni's everybody's baby. For sharing your journey and your young perspective on these topics. And we want to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. And we look forward to another edition of The Righteous View. Good evening, everybody.